Here is the Crescendo Music Education Podcast, episode number 28. This podcast is being recorded on the lands of the Turrbal people. I acknowledge them as the traditional owners of the land and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. They were the first music makers on this land. In this episode number 28, I'm going to speak to Denise Gagne. Now, she is an amazing music educator from Canada. Many of you listening already know her well, love her work. I'm going to split my chat with her into 2 episodes. I know that I've been doing that a lot, but that's because I made the decision that half-hour or closer to half-hour episodes are just a bit easier for us to approach than whole-hour episodes. Just made that decision. So this one, of course, Denise and I kept chatting and it was a bit too long. So we're doing a part 1 and a part 2. So in this part 1, I talked to her a fair bit about Musicplay. I wanted to know about that fabulous online resource and a little about its history, its inception, how it's working. It was very interesting. We also talk about the actual job of teaching and how it has changed a bit over the years. Every episode, I'm tending to say, you're going to love this because this person is amazing. Well, I'm going to say it again. You're going to love this because Denise is amazing. I hope you enjoy part 1 of my chat with Denise. Denise, hello.
I'm so excited to be here.
Oh, I'm excited to be chatting to you. And I know I've said this many times, but I just love the world that we're in. I mean, here I am sitting in Australia and you're sitting in America. I'm sitting here late on Saturday morning and you're sitting there on your Friday evening. Yeah, I just think it's great that we can connect.
It is amazing. It's still a little bit futuristic and the Jetsons to me.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Me too. I wanted to be in one of those flying cars. And I wanted, when I was little, I was desperate for a telephone that you could see the other person in.
So now we can.
Now we can. All right, I'm going to start with your bio, Denise. So, Denise has taught instrumental, choral and classroom music from babies and preschool to college levels. She has degrees in music and education, as well as level 3 certification in both Kodaly and Orff. Denise has authored or edited many publications, including the Musicplay and MusicplayOnline.com curriculum. TV music at tellusplanet.net. No?
That's my email address. Oh. But the better one is...
I'm going, what's this? All right, we'll pretend I didn't say that one. Shh. Okay. So, Denise, that's a very, very short bio for somebody that has had such a distinguished and interesting career. So, listening to that brief bio, what would you like to add to your summary of work?
You know, there's not a lot to add. That sums it up really well. I just feel like I've been doing this longer than everybody else and will be still standing when the rest of you are long retired.
So, look, I'm sure there's more to this than just longevity. You know, there's a lot of talent mixed up in there, Denise. And I was thinking when I first saw you, I should have looked up the year. You did a session at the International Kodaly Symposium that was down near Newcastle in New South Wales. And I have a photo. Okay, I'm going to write a note. I'm going to see if I can dig up that photo of you from IKS. And I was in a session that
would be amazing. And I haven't changed. I'm joking.
Not a bit.
That was 2004. So that was 18 years ago. I'm pretty sure that was the year. And I went with my friend Lil Traquaire, who, she's a retired music teacher.
Wow. it was, and you had already been in the game well and truly a long time, but that was the first time I think I got to work with you live. So it was really lovely. So I think that a lot of us now know you for Musicplay Online. Can you just sort of tell anyone who's been, I don't know, under a rock or something and doesn't know about Musicplay Online, would you tell us about it? And how actually
Well,
also not just about it, but how it came about. That would be interesting.
okay, so the evolution of it came from my Kodaly levels. So in level 3 Kodaly, our final project was to write a series of lesson plans for any grade level for 4 months and plan out what you were going to do. So I did it for first grade, and it was such an intriguing task to me that I thought, I'm going to keep doing this. So that was about 1995, and I did it for about 5 years. And that was kind of at the point that I was starting to make recordings. I did the singing games books, the action song books, Christmas concert idea book. We've only got one planet. I'd done 4 or 5 recordings, and we kind of had a process for doing them. And at that point in late 1990s, any curriculum for music in Canada was on records, not even on cassettes. And I thought, this is so awful. It's so backward. I've got all these recordings. They're not that hard to make. We can put them onto CDs. So I had the audacity to build grades 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 out for a whole year. And in 2000, I released the early versions of Musicplay. And it was interesting because it was a person from Australia was at the International Society of Music Educators in Edmonton that year. ISME was in the year 2000, was in Edmonton. And he ended up bringing me into Perth the year following. So my first Australian experience was right after I had done the first iteration of Musicplay. So the first iteration lasted about 4 or 5 years. And what I had done as a Kodaly teacher and as an Orff teacher, I overlap from year to year. If I introduce a song in grade 1, very often I'll bring the same song back in 2nd grade and derive more concepts from it. But I realized pretty quickly that people were not happy paying money for a grade 1 curriculum where some of the songs were in grade 2. So in 2004, 2005, we did a complete rebuild, and we changed it so that every grade had separate materials. A little tiny bit of overlap remains. Stella Ella Ola's in grade 3 and in grade 4, but for the most part, all the grades are different. I needed to write kindergarten and I needed to write grade 6. And so those got done, I think, in 2003. We did another big revision in 2009 when Ontario came out with their new standards, their new curriculum, and it really focused heavily on the creative process. It was so interesting because Ontario was really early focusing on creating, responding, connecting, which is what the American National Standards came out with in 2014. So when the American National Standards came out in 2014, I'd already rewritten many of the lessons so that each one included creative components. Let's see, what other big influences were there along the way? We went to Nashville. My friend Artie Almeida and I have done a workshop together for the past 13 years. Our first was in 2010 on a cruise ship. Best one ever. 2011, we went to Vegas. And since then, we've done a big summer symposium all over the States. We've done Texas, we've done Chicago, Branson, Missouri, lots and lots of fun places. When we went to Nashville, I thought, Quaver is local. We'll see if they want to do a session with us while we're there. So not only did they do a session, but they invited us to their amazing and incredible studios, gave us a tour, and they were the ones that said, we're going to put it all online. And I go, oh, that's a really, really good idea. So the idea for the online part came directly from Quaver, and I have to thank them for that. I sort of thought about it, played around with it. At the same time, I'm getting to retirement age and thinking I should probably retire. But I explored a little bit of grant programs in Canada. And the National Research Council of Canada had a grant program to digitize Canadian products. Musicplay was a Canadian product. Digitizing it by putting it on a website just was such a logical thing. So I got in touch with the rep, and the Central Alberta representative turned out to be a parent of students that I taught. She walked into my office. She saw the wall of books we'd published. She didn't know where I'd gone after I left her school. And she goes, I can't believe you've done all this. And her kids had loved me. I had loved them. And she went to bat for me and got us $250,000 to do the initial website build, which was amazing. It wouldn't have got started without that. And just since then, it's just kind of grown and grown. We did the build in 2015, and we, while we were building and while things were available, we just let teachers use it for free. And then in 2016, we closed it, and you had to actually pay money and subscribe. And we did get some pushback. We had people who said, I've got all the Musicplay binders. Why can't I use this website for free? And somebody came up with an answer that I thought was really good. I've got all the Harry Potter books, but I still have to pay to go see the movies. The website, I mean, it's a separate product. And since 2016, it's just grown and grown. Christmas of 2016, we had 400 subscribers, and I was all excited that we had 400. Every milestone that we hit after that was exciting. And then COVID happened. And COVID is what really drove the website to new heights. When COVID happened and teachers all over the world all of a sudden had to come up with a lesson that they could do with kids at home, they were looking for anything online. And the numbers on our website crashed the site. It went down for 3 or 4 days, one of the worst 3 or 4 days of my life. And what we had to do was completely disable the student login. So we kept the teacher login required to see the PDFs, but we opened the student login to everybody in the whole world. And the response was phenomenal. In 1 week, we had 1 million page views. So we went from maybe 10,000 page views to 1 million page views. It was just stunning. And we weren't able to rebuild that student login for some time. So September 2020 came around. That's the start of the school year in North America. I thought nobody's going to subscribe because they're getting it for free. It was mostly free. And they really supported me because of me having supported them. And our subscriptions, we sort of count the US 1 years. We went from 2,000 US 1 year subscriptions. In September 2020, it jumped to 8,000. And what had been primarily Canadian customers buying our product and some US flipped. And now it's primarily American customers buying the website and a lot of Canadians as well. But that shift happened because of COVID. And we actually left that student login completely wide open until the end of 2021. That's when we closed it off. And it got us contacts all over the world. I've done 2 webinars for a company in India and met with preschool teachers over Zoom. It was so cool. And the whole world is using us now. We have teachers, I don't even know how many countries, but I bet you it's over 100 countries are using us now.
It is just mind-blowing, but it also has come about in part because of your generosity, because you could have not made that free easily. You could have even gone, oh, look, because of COVID, I'll give you a 10% discount, or no discount. You need me now, so buy me. So I think that's just, in some ways, it's just repayment for your generosity and your desire to help other music educators, which is at the core of everything you do, or it seems to be from the outside. You're trying to help us in every way you can.
I think for me, this is a passion project.
Mm-hmm.
And when John Jacobson and I were in discussions about him coming on board with us, he had offers from Macmillan McGraw-Hill, a $4 billion company. He was in discussions with Quaver, again, a company with very, very deep pockets. And then he talked to me and I said, honestly, I know we could charge twice or three times what we charge for this website, but I put passion before profit. And that really resonated with him. And he said, you know what, we're going to go with the little guy. And it's just, again, it's added a level, it's leveling us up to the point where pretty soon we're going to be every bit as good as the Quaver website. In fact, I think in some ways, pedagogically, I think we're stronger. But it certainly leveled up the performance material that we have on the website now. And we're not raising prices. We're keeping them the same for this year at least. I say, as long as the website's sustainable, I'm happy where it is. And we know that a lot of teachers are buying it out of pocket. And, it's great if your district buys it for you, but many teachers just pay the $20 a month out of pocket because they want it and it saves them. I always say, if it saves you an hour a month, it's worth that $20. Your time's worth more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. If you look at it in with the lens of how much time have I saved, and not only that, but also access to the quality of the resources, whereas you could possibly put something together like that, but the time and effort it would take to create something that good. No, it's wonderful. I'm so delighted that it's going so well for you and going all over the world. That's really wonderful. And thank you for being so generous and sharing. I think that's
This is my retirement hobby. This is my legacy. And fortunately, I have three kids who are almost as passionate about this as I am. So I can see it continuing on in the future. One daughter's a kindergarten teacher, works for us half-time, teaches half-time. Other daughter's a music teacher she's probably my biggest critic because she's not scared to tell me what I'm doing wrong and what I need to improve. And the son has a theater degree and he's working in customer service. So when you talk to Brian at customer support, he's family. And and we have a really, really good team, again, who are very passionate about doing this. There's more money to be made probably in running a cannabis store or a liquor store, but this is something that's good for the world. And I can go to bed at night, going to sleep thinking, I've done something good today.
yes. Yes. And thank you. I think that's amazing. In your journey as a music educator, what would you consider the highlight or highlights of your journey? Now, obviously, the development of Musicplay and MusicplayOnline has really got to be like, it's like your baby, listening to you talk about it, your baby and your legacy. And so obviously Musicplay generally has to be a highlight. Yes. But apart from that, what else would you say would be a highlight?
I was really fortunate to have three schools that were really, really supportive of me as a teacher. And that I don't think I truly appreciated in my first years of teaching what a musical community Macklin, Saskatchewan was. But I always say those kids taught me how to teach. And it was a small town, 1,000 people. The school had 400 kids, kindergarten to grade 12. I taught them all. And when I left there, when I moved on to a bigger center, out of the 200 kids in high school, 170 of them were in either band or choir or both.
Wow.
And that to me is a highlight. And seeing probably about 10 of those kids go on to careers as music educators, professional musicians, accompanists, kinder music teachers, that is a highlight for me. I went to a wedding dance in Saskatchewan. And one of the very first classes that I taught, Lyle Brost was a student. He was fourth grade at the time. And it was a country school. I'm sure you know about them in Australia. A country school, it was basically a school plunked down in the middle of a wheat field. And it had all kind of triple grades. Grade 1, 2, 3 was together, 4, 5, 6 was together. And they scheduled me for a half day a week. So I'd drive out there with my little truck, I'd unload some instruments and go in and have lots of fun with the kids. And some of the older ones, I thought, I bet you they have guitars at home. So I asked them if they could bring their guitars in for music, and we'd teach them how to play guitar. I don't know much about guitar. I've had one lesson in my life. And my brother said, okay, go practice. And when you've practiced, I'll give you lesson 2. And I've never had the second one, but I figured I could think my way through it. So we got the guitars. I picked out some music that I thought they could handle. I taught them how to tune it, how to read a chord chart, and they went away. And this one kid came back the week after, and he could play better than I could. It was just like, okay, I have some work to do to keep up to him.
Yep.
So a couple of years ago, we went back to Saskatchewan and went to a wedding dance. And the band on the stage was this student and his children. And they had a family band, and we were dancing polkas to this family band. And I have to say, that was a tear-jerking highlight, because that's what you want your kids to do. You want them to become lifelong musicians.
Yes.
And that was a real thrill.
Oh, that is beautiful. I love that story. That's amazing. It would be lovely to be able to track our past students, wouldn't it? So that was fortunate that you met him there and had that experience.
Yeah.
That's lovely.
When you teach in the little towns, you do keep track of them better than when you teach in a more urban center. So yes, I'm on Facebook actually with a lot of my former students. And I had one this year that had a 60th birthday. And I'm going, okay, how did that happen? I taught K-12. I taught high school kids, and I started teaching when I was 21. So I was only that little bit older than some of them.
Yes.
So yes, and I survived it.
You did. And seriously, you are just looking amazingly youthful. You certainly don't, and
yes. I don't look bad for 50, right?
Oh, you look pretty fabulous for 50, Denise. But do you know what else? I do think, as someone of your similar age, I think one of the things that keeps us young is the youthful attitude. When you spend your life singing songs, playing games, and making music, you just don't become old. It's I've got I should be, as well, in fact, at the time of recording, it was my birthday 4 days ago, and so you think about age and retirement. I don't want to retire. I am having the best time teaching. I'm not ready to retire. I don't want to give up singing songs, playing games. I know at one stage I will have to. I've got a few years left, but I think that's why we don't age, Denise.
I agree. I agree 100%. We're the ones who get paid to sing and play games all day. It's the best job ever.
It absolutely is. And, it took me a lot of years to get to that place mentally, because there are so many other pressures, and there can be very negative influences depending on the schools you're in, the demands of the job, the attitude of the classroom teachers to your subject. There's a lot of things that can influence you negatively. I don't want to be Pollyanna here, but once you've made the decision, you've got the mindset that this is the best job in the world, I am enjoying every minute of this job, then it just happens. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy,
I have to say, though, that teaching is much harder now than 20 years ago, and way harder now than 40 years ago. It's a much more demanding job. I'm in the United States right now, and the demands and expectations on teachers is significantly higher than what we see in Canada. For example, teachers have to turn their lesson plans for the following week in on Friday. They have to turn them in. Have you ever had to turn your lesson plans in? I never did.
no. There are some schools here that do that can request that level of work, pre-planning, whatever. But no, certainly not. And I agree, it's a much more difficult job in many ways now. Hence, more, and well, you can even tell by the fact that we're having trouble attracting people to teaching generally. So there's huge issues, but even more reason for the mindset work, isn't it? If you want to
Mhm.
stay in this job, you've got to just know it's the best job in the world. Yeah.
Yes.
So I agree with that. All right, let's get to people who have been influential in your life, professionally or personally or both. And I imagine there's loads of people you've worked with that you would admire and respect and love. So it's a bit hard, I think, this question, but is there anyone that sticks out here?
Well, there's a few. I would say number one would be Lois Choksey.
Mm-hmm.
She did the Kodaly levels in Calgary. I did my first year while I was pregnant with my youngest, and then he was a difficult little guy, and I was scared to leave him alone with his father. And so I didn't go back for 5 years to do my second year, but it was really, really good. And I was so glad that I had that time to kind of process what I'd learned in the Kodaly level one. And then I did my level two and level three. My last year was the year that she retired. So significant influence on my teaching.
Yes.
And in the Orff world, Jos Wojtek, I did introductory Orff with him. He was an amazing musician and teacher. And then when I did my Orff levels in Kentucky, I did them with Cindy Hall and Jay Broker. And those two, again, I think were amazing influences in my teaching.
Yes, great. And that's interesting the way that you have married those two approaches too, the philosophical approaches. Was it difficult, do you think, or did it feel fairly natural to you to use both philosophies at once?
To me, both philosophies, there's more similarities than differences. When you dig into the Orff approach, if you read through Exploring Orff or any of those other books, they sequence very much like Kodaly. I think in practice, many Orff teachers don't do that, but I think the Kodaly strength is in the sequencing of instruction. And I love that. That fits my teaching style really, really well. But what I loved was the Orff insistence on creating and giving the students ownership of the music. And I've gone from being a band conductor where I conduct the band, we put music in front of them and they play and I fix their mistakes, to me being a facilitator and saying, what other ways could you think to try this? Can you think of another way, another set of sounds that we could use for this?
Mhm.
And it's been a really big shift in my mindset. When I go into a classroom now, I don't want them to just perform a piece of music well that I want to teach them. I want them to create their own. And that's huge, I think. I would say marrying Orff and Kodaly is still very much a work in progress. Um, and I think we all struggle with it, those of us that have had the training in both, but I see such huge value in both approaches, and I couldn't do just one of them. And I think Musicplay actually marries them really well as well.
Mm, good, really interesting. Yes. What do you think, uh, or for what are you most grateful?
Most definitely the people who have helped me along this journey.
Mm-hmm.
um, Leanne Holloway. She's our business manager, and she was the babysitter of my difficult little 5-year-old, my youngest, and she loved him, and he loved her. And when she moved close to me, and we would walk together in the evenings. And when I first started publishing, and all of a sudden I'm teaching full time and I've got all these orders in my mailbox because that's how they were ordered at that time,
Mm-hmm.
back 27 years ago. Um, I couldn't deal with it. And I said, do you know anybody who's done simply accounting or done and knows anything about it? And she said, well, I have. So she started helping me in voice, and she's been working at my side ever since then. And then I have to say Morgan McKee is number 2 on this list, because he was 18 years old. He was doing a gap year between his graduation from high school and when he went to Berkeley in Boston and did recording engineering. And he recorded the ladies' choir I was singing in. And I went to him after and said, "Do you think you could do some recordings for me?" And again, 30 years later, we're still working together. He's working full-time in the business. He's our full-time recording engineer, and he's just an amazingly talented musician. So I would say Leanne and Morgan, and there's probably others that I'm not going to think of that have been huge mentors. I was really fortunate to learn finale early on, and that made a big difference. So I was teaching in this little town, middle of nowhere, Saskatchewan, with 1,000 people. And there was a competition. The Saskatchewan Band Association held a competition. And the school that won the competition would get a resident composer for a year. And so I thought, okay, resident composer. I got every child in my school to write a composition. So grade 1s, I can't remember what they did. It was a rhythm composition. My band students had to write 32 bars for their instrument. I had one band student who said, "Ms. Gagne, this is the hardest thing I've ever had to do in school." And it made me realize, ooh, we haven't been doing enough creating and composing. But I had this big package of compositions that I sent off to the contest, and we won. So we had this resident composer for a year who had come from Berkeley in Boston and was very technologically savvy. And he guided me to buying my first computer, which was a Mac S30 with a screen about this big. And I think it had like 64 megabytes of memory, like it was something ridiculously small. I bought a laser printer, and he taught me how to use Finale. And if it wasn't for him, I would have never started publishing and self-publishing materials, because he mentored me along the way in that Finale process.
Wow. So
So
good.
lots of happy accidents along the way.
Yeah. Yeah. Happy accidents, but also, by the sound of it, the opportunities that you made the most of. So it's not just the
Yes.
fact they happened, it's the fact that you welcomed them and ran with them, you know?
Yeah.
True.
Yeah, I think if I have a gift, I really feel like I'm the jack of all musical trades and really the master of none. I know so many people who are much better choral directors than I am, and many people that are much better band directors than I am. But I've had my finger in so many pies, and having taught K-12 was really good, because you could see, I could see where I wanted those kids to be before I started them in instrumental music. And so this jack of all trades, master of none, I feel like I've gone a long, long ways on a little bit of talent and a lot of hard work and seeing opportunities where they arise. I mean, there's crazy things that I've done and they've worked. For example, when I taught my first year elementary in Red Deer, Alberta, bigger community, a fax came through. So this was about 30 years ago. A fax came through and it said International Children's Composition Contest in Japan. Send your entries here. And I thought, we could do this. So I got my daughter, who was 9, to write a little song, and we sent it in. We won a trip to Japan. It was amazing. It was absolutely amazing. So Allison and I got to go to this international children's music competition, and she sang as a 9-year-old in front of a big, huge audience in Tachikawa, Japan. Other things that came along, 1999, I found out about Rotary group study exchanges. Our district, our local district, was inviting people to apply, and it was a little over the age limit. They're 25 to 35. And I said, well, I'm 35 with a little experience. Could I still apply? And I really wanted to do it. So I got this, I had deferred salary leave. I had the time off from school to do it because I'd done deferred salary. And I got a trip with Rotary International for a month month to Peru. I knew no Spanish. I knew 2 words when I applied. I studied, I listened, I practiced in the car every chance I got. And I could actually make terrible conversations with people in Spanish. And it was the best experience ever. And they took us to lots of beautiful folkloric experiences, which again, I wish we had the cell phone thing back in 1990. But those are opportunities that other people might not want to take advantage of. And, for whom I'm grateful, I should really add my husband, because he stayed home with 3 children in Saskatchewan so I could do my Kodaly levels. And
Yes.
he stayed home with 3 children for a month when I went to Peru. And he's never complained about all the traveling that I do. He just says, go.
Yes.
And he
That's lovely.
sometimes comes along if I'm going to a really good place. And most of the time, he's just happy to stay home and let me deal with airports and things.
That's so lovely. That is so lovely. That's such a lovely story. Makes you feel awkward inside. All right. So now we're going to give our listeners your nuggets of fabulous. So Denise Gagne's nuggets of fabulous. They could be anything. They could be something from Musicplay, or they could be just general ideas, strategies, resources, a few things that you think our listeners might be able to go, oh, that's a good idea. I'm going to go and try that next week.
One of the things that I've always been in love with is singing games. And this, of course, comes from the Kodaly tradition. And I use those in Orff ways to springboard to create. But I've always felt that in K1, 2, 3, there should be at least one singing game per class. So I've spent my career finding the ones that kids really and truly love. Cut the cake. They all love that. Doggy, doggy, where's your bone? And I found ways to play these games that they go fast. Kids don't get restless in the guessing games. But I really and truly love the singing games. And I think everybody should try in K to 3 at least to have a singing game every period. And that should be a part of everybody's
Yes.
teaching. I never did a lot with classical music listening until about 2000. And that ISME conference in Edmonton had a contest where if you entered and won, you got 30 tickets to see the Edmonton Symphony's performance for children. So of course, Denise is a contest enter.
Yeah,
I entered and I won.
you sure
And
are.
absolutely. So we had tickets for a whole grade 5 class, but we had 2 grade 5 classes in the school. Parent council paid for the second one, and we took a school bus up to Edmonton. And to prepare them for that performance, I decided to do listening stuff in my classes. And I go, ooh, I have not ever done enough listening.
Mhm.
And I think since then, I've just explored how we can make classical music something that kids request. And so now I think my very, very favorite listening example is the Swan from Carnival of the Animals. It's over 3 minutes long. I couldn't hold kids' attention if I just wanted them to listen and answer questions, but you put paper plates in their hands and you do beautiful movement to it, and you've got the kids right here asking to do it again. Ribbons, scarves, manipulative. And that has become, again, that's some of the nuggets that I would absolutely encourage people to use props in their listening. I know there are famous teachers out there that don't recommend doing it. And I think it's because they're a little lazy and don't want to hand stuff out. But the kids are so engaged, and they're not scared to move when there's scarves or there's plates, or older kids were doing cup games. So that's a nugget of fabulous. I've learned so much from Artie Almeida. She's an amazing teacher, and we should get her on your podcast.
Oh, I plan to.
She's got
In fact, I've already
what we
messaged her.
yeah, no, she is lovely. She has some sayings. She calls them artyisms. And one of my favorites is, it's not hard, it's just new. And that one I've used over and over again. And I find myself now using more of her little artyisms. You can't be great if you can't audiate. Things like that are really good. One thing Artie and I have talked about, and in keeping our lessons and managing behaviors, and they're certainly not better now than they were 40 years ago. They're far worse than they've ever been. One of the things we do is we pace really, really quickly.
Mhm.
And the tougher the class, the faster my pacing. So they don't have time to get wiggly and restless. It's just boom, boom, boom. I taught my granddaughter's classes last spring. It was first time I was allowed back in schools since COVID. And the one class was first thing in the morning. And I went, nice, slow, gentle pace. They were such good listeners, so well behaved. Then they're twins. And so the other twin came in right before lunch. And as soon as the kids walk in, I'm looking at the classroom teacher and I'm going, and he's going, this is his toughest class of the week. He had a kid sitting under his desk and he said, it's okay. He's there because that's his safe place. And with that class, I did the same activities, but in high gear, boom, 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 boom. And they did everything and they got the same lesson, but at a way different pace. And
Mhm.
yeah, I always say with little ones, you sit, stand, play instruments, repeat. Sit, stand, play instruments, repeat, so that you're just constantly shifting gears. For the younger the class is, the more activities you have to have planned. And you need some activities in your back pocket that you can pull out when you've got a class that's restless. So some of those activities might be finger plays. Johnny, 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 whoops, Johnny, whoops, Johnny, 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 Johnny. I'd like to say your name. Would you like it fast or slow? Let's say Debbie, fast or slow?
Fast.
Debbie, 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 whoops, Debbie, whoops, Debbie, 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 Debbie. And I can go around the whole class in about 2 minutes, practice all their names.
Mhm.
And it's having those little finger plays in my back pocket that I can pull out. And strategies for the older kids, I might have them do hand staff. First line,
Mm.
second line, third line, fourth line, fifth line, space, 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 space. Those kinds of things that you can pull out and keep them engaged when you might be losing them.
Absolutely amazing. And I resonate so much with what you say. It's wonderful. But you are so right. And those nuggets of fabulous are truly fabulous. Now we'll change gear again a little bit. Advocacy and selling the community on the importance of your program. Just wondering if you have any advice for other music educators around this. Now, I'm assuming it's similar in many parts of the world, but we definitely here in Queensland are fighting harder than we have ever had to fight before. We've been fairly lucky having world-leading programs here since the 70s with qualified music educators. And I won't go down that little rabbit hole, but I'll just say generally, and across Australia, it's a little bit patchy. How do you suggest that music educators sell the importance of their program? And it's okay, like I don't need to sell how important it is to you or to the people that are on the Crescendo email list. In fact, just this morning I sent a link to an article that, but I'm actually preaching to the converted,
Of course.
so how do we get to other people to convince them of the importance of what we do?
So this is a tough one because I think number one, your best advocates are going to be the parents of the kids in your school.
Mhm.
And if you are running a really solid program and a really good program, and you take every opportunity you can to show off the wonderful things you're teaching those students, those parents will be aware of it,
Mhm.
and they will be the fighters to keep that in your schools. If your program is a little bit weak and you're having difficulty connecting with your students, then I think you've got a tougher sell. So I think number one is, as educators, we have to look honestly at what we're doing in the classrooms, and we have to do it really well, and we have to do it in a way that parents go, I want music in my school. I'll give you an example. My daughter is teaching in a school near Calgary that didn't have a music teacher before she came. And they hadn't had a music teacher for 5 or 6 years. She came in and she's a phenomenal teacher. She's such a good music teacher. The very first Christmas concert, she's well organized. The kids performed beautifully. The parents loved it. And parent council came to her after and said, we want to give you $5,000. You can do whatever you want with it. And they have given her that for budget every year since. She's not having to go out and advocate because she's presenting a product that those parents want to have, and they want to have it continue. Beyond that, when I've gotten the opportunity to speak to school boards, I try and come in with a little bit of a fun music thing that we've done in class. For example, hot cross buns. Hot cross buns, hot cross buns, 1 a penny, 2 a penny, hot cross buns. I did this in a school board meeting.
Yeah.
And then I said, now let's do it the way we would do it with the kids. Every time you hear the word cross, you cross your arms. Then you go, hot cross buns, hot cross buns, 1 a penny, 2 a penny, hot cross buns. And then I made them partner and do it with a partner. And they're all laughing and they're struggling. And I go, this is what music does for your kids. It makes them think. It makes them listen. It makes them communicate. It makes them cooperate. And so I think you have to be proactive in showing the benefits that music can do. Any opportunity you get. But first of all, you have to have a good program, sell it to your admin, sell it to your parents, because you're doing such a great job. They can't imagine their school being without you.
I love it. That is fabulous advice, Denise. Thank you. And before we end this chat, mind you, almost everything you've said, I want to just expand on, but we'll do this again. We'll have a more in-depth on one or two topics,
Absolutely.
I think. Yeah. So before we sign off, I'd like to give you the chance to get on your soapbox. So I'd like you to just tell the world something that's really important for you to say.
I think with what's going on in the world today, with all the divisive politics, both in Canada and in the US, with wars that shouldn't be happening in other parts of the world, I think we need, any of us who are working with children, we really need to try and build character so that our children grow up to make really good choices. And we teach our children to be good people. I have a song called A Wish for Peace. And to me, it says everything that I want to say. I wish for you. I wish for me. I wish for all the world to live in harmony. And I'll get teary-eyed if I do any more of it. But really, I think through music, we can connect people that might be divided otherwise. And I think if we can do that with our children, they're going to grow up and be good people.
That's beautiful, Denise. Thank you so much for talking to us today.
This has been a real pleasure, and I would love to do a webinar sometime with you where we Zoom it and record it on the Musicplay Online website, because it's my baby and I would love to show the whole world how much fun it is to use it and what a good teaching tool it is. I do want to say I never ever want the website to replace a well-trained classroom music teacher. It's a tool for the well-trained music teacher to use. So I don't want it to be edutainment is what I would say, but it's a great resource. And I hope we can meet again and talk a little bit about that. This has been really, really fun. I admire your work tremendously. You're doing amazing things, and you keep advocating for the programs in Queensland. And yes, I really love what you do too.
Thank you so much. And we'll lock in. In fact, we'll do a series on using Musicplay. That would be amazing. Okay, so everyone stay tuned for that. And thank you so much, Denise Gagne. Bye.
Okay, thank you so much. Bye-bye.
As we know, laughter relieves stress. Don't lose sight of the funny side of life. I have my grandma on speed dial. I call that Instagram. It's so bad. Thank you so much for watching our Crescendo Music Education podcast. For more information about all things Crescendo, including membership and music education resources, visit us at crescendo.com.au. Don't forget to like and subscribe.